0761 688 181.
In all these years, we emphasize two words: wealth and jobs. And we try to waken our people up to show them where wealth and jobs come from.
The Parish Development Model, PDM, is a bold initiative that is reshaping Uganda's rural economy. By allocating 100 million shillings to each parish annually, PDM empowers households by unlocking opportunities for wealth creation.
This program will be maintained. Each year we send 100 million for the parish. If you get the 1 million, you can buy some goats, you can buy some pigs, you can buy even young cows.
Farmers are transitioning from subsistence farming to commercial agriculture, laying the groundwork for wealth creation and improved livelihoods.
This project started 11 years ago after an inspiration from His Excellency. And that time I was working as a taxi driver. I was doing that master business in Soroti, and he was talking about how to improve household income.
With the PDM, you bring back the money after 24 months, but in the third year, you would get another 100 million paid back by those who got first.
The President's message is a mindset changer. Becoming rich does not mean you should have a lot of land, you should have a lot of education, you just need a vision and implement and start from where you are.
So therefore, this PDM is to get all of you out of poverty. That's why we said 100 million per parish per year.
This message is brought to you by the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance.
In all these years, we emphasize two words: wealth and jobs. And we try to waken our people up to show them where wealth and jobs come from.
Enteekateeka ya gavumenti ey'okuyamba abantu baayo miruka oba giyite Parish Development Model nteekateeka yagunjibwawo okukyusa ebyenfuna bya bannayuganda ku byalo ng'obukadde 100 bwe buweebwa buli muluka buli mwaka era nga kiyambyeko amaka ag'enjawulo okuggulawo emikisa egy'okugaggawala.
This program will be maintained. Each year we send 100 million for the parish. If you get the 1 million, you can buy some goats, you can buy some pigs, you can buy even young cows.
Abalimi bakyusizza okuva mu nnima ey'okulima emmere ey'okulya ne badda mu kulima emmere ey'okutunda bafune ensimbi ekiyambye abawerako okukyusa obulamu bwabwe.
Pulojekiti eno yatandika emyaka 11 egiyise nga Pulezidenti Museveni ye yampa amaanyi okutandika. Mu budde obwo nali nvuga takisi Soroti ne mpulira Pulezidenti Museveni ng'ayogera ku ngeri y'okwongera kunnyingiza mu maka.
And he was talking about how to improve household income.
With the PDM, you bring back the money after 24 months. But in the third year, you would get another 100 million paid back by those who got first.
Obubaka bwa Pulezidenti Museveni bukyusa endowooza. Okugaggawala tekitegeeza kubeera na ttaka ddene nnyo oba nti wasoma nnyo. Weetaaga okuba ng'olengerera wala n'ossa mu nkola era n'otandikirawo.
So therefore, this PDM is to get all of you out of poverty. That's why we said 100 million per parish per year.
Obubaka buno bukutuusibwako Ministry ya Teknologiya n'okulungamya eggwanga.
Our program of poverty eradication is a must. We want everybody to be involved.
Through the Parish Development Model, Ugandans are starting small but impactful projects to improve their livelihoods.
When we give 1 million, we know it's not enough to do many things, but it's a starting point.
I'm a PDM beneficiary, a farmer. Your Excellency, I was given 1 million Uganda shillings from Kobil Kawo PDM Circle. Your Excellency, I got 20 bunches from my small piece of land sold, got 400,000, put in the PDM farm, Your Excellency, in the PDM money, Your Excellency, I bought a cow of 1,400,000.
In 1 year, 100 families in the parish you get. In 5 years, 500 families would have got.
We were the first people to receive money from Nakapiriprit. I received $1 million. I rented 4 acres of land and I was able to harvest 14 bags.
So really this 1 million is enabling somebody to start something. Yes, and we don't want to give too much money to one person because we have got very many people to cover.
The parish development model empowers the people, focusing on lifting up the masses and creating opportunities that ensure prosperity for all. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Much thanks for being with us. This is Good Morning Uganda. My name is Olive Monica Najuma. Now, as we launch steadily into 2026, which will be the general election year for Uganda, we have many conversations surrounding the same, the readiness of different political camps when it comes to the general elections in 2026. But it's also important to note that the elections are starting this year with special interest groups that will be casting their votes for their leaders in June 2025. Among these, we'll have persons living with disabilities, we'll have the youth, the workers' elections as well. So yes, when we talk about the elections, it is the 2025-2026 general elections. But when it comes to choosing our representatives in our constituencies and also the overall position of leading the country, the presidency, then those elections will be taking place early next year. Now, the Electoral Commission has already released the roadmap regarding the general elections. The voters' register has already been updated, and many efforts towards the general elections are already underway so that we have seamless elections when the new year, next year, 2026, unfolds. Now, regarding the same, we will be having a conversation with returnees for Museveni. Yes, returnees, this is a group of young Ugandans that once left the country to go work in countries like Iraq, like Afghanistan, like Somalia, to make a living. And now many of them are back. If you remember, in the mid-2000s, we had a wave of young men leaving Uganda for countries like Afghanistan, for countries like Iraq, to work in military bases by NATO, their NATO military bases. And many of them later on came back. They had made quite a good amount of money. And currently we have another wave of young women who leave the country to go to the Middle East and work as house helps, and a few young men that still go to those same countries to work as security guards. But our focus now is on the young men who left Uganda between the years of 2005, 2006, 2018, but now have come back and they have organized themselves under a group named Returnees for Museveni Mobilization Task Force. Now, together, they are seeking to preach the gospel of the incumbent President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, why he is the right representative for Uganda, why he is the right person to be voted again as the president of Uganda. But let me not get forward in the conversation. I will be speaking to Mr. Anglin Agaba, who is the head of NRM Returnees Mobilization Presidential Campaigns. Good morning and you're welcome.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here. I thank you very much.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. First of all, let's first focus on the returnees, but way before you became returnees, when you left the country to go to these countries, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, first of all, why did a group of young men in their prime choose to leave the country to go to the Middle East to work?
Well, you see, Madam, who?
Olive.
You see, for any stable country to progress, it must have a president who looks far, from present to future. So we left Uganda. We went and worked in those countries, specifically the NATO countries, in American bases, in countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia. We were privileged to go and work, and we learned a lot. We learned a lot. In other words, we learned a lot which other countries don't know, that never deployed there. And I think first and foremost, we earned money. We put our country on the map by then. So we are very grateful. Yes.
Okay. Now, I agree that many of the young men that went to these countries around that time did make money. I know a few people that went to these countries to work. But I have one pertinent question, and I think many Ugandans are of the same, have this question. Why is it that these people left the country, made a good amount of money probably they wouldn't have made back home in the time frame that they did, but right now, a few years later, many of them have no penny to their name? What do you think caused that?
Well, you see, the time we left, I think we were, you see, as you have said, it was mid-2000. No, early 2000. I think we were not well conversant with money. So we were young, not well conversant with money. So we were so excited, as if the money we are working will never, if we misuse it, it can't get finished, it can't get done. But with time we came on progressing. We learned how to save. And some saved, yes, and some never saved. But as returnees from 7, we are now looking for our fellow comrades who never saved, so that we see how we can help. And we are really doing good, because as you have heard, we have our associations where we have gathered, where we get information for all other comrades. And we look for those who are not in good conditions now, and we try to help. And they are very grateful. Yes.
Okay. Now, returnees from 7 Mobilization Task Force. Tell us more about this task force.
Well, returnees from 7 Mobilization Task Force is a task force that is composed of more than 200,000 Ugandan returnees.
200,000?
200,000.
Wow.
We have all the database, and we are still mobilizing for more. Actually, that's the number us as returnees we have. But when you check with the other relevant authorities, like immigration, like REBA, this REBA union groups, they can tell you that they have more than 268,000. So in other words, for us, we have 200,000 returnees, but we are even still looking for more. Because if immigration and these other labor union associations are saying the returnees are more than 268,000, it means they are still fellow comrades whom we have not yet brought on board. So we are still mobilizing those comrades. So this is a task force made up of both men and women who went and served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia, specifically war zone countries. And we are privileged You see, there is a right and a privilege. For us, it was not a right. We have a right to get jobs as citizens of Uganda under this government or under any other government. But still, you people should not forget that it was a privilege to go and work in war zone countries. So we are thanking President Museveni for that privilege that he gave us. And we think it's high time for us to mobilize for him under our umbrella, because we have the numbers and we are good in mobilization. Because some of the tasks we had to do when we were in Iraq and Afghanistan and Somalia was not only fighting. Because remember,
were you even fighting?
Yes, absolute fighting. But remember,
because for many people, the understanding is that many of the young men that were in these military bases were acting as security guards, not as soldiers.
You see, fighting. I want to tell you one thing. Fighting is composed of many things. In a war, even a cook is a fighter. In a war.
Okay, makes sense.
Even the one who reads songs, a revolutionary song, is a fighter.
Okay.
But yes, doctors are fighters. Those soldiers in logistics are fighters. The ones handling tanks are fighters. The ones on front line are fighters. I mean, fighting is made up of a group of people. But ours is a little bit different, because we were involved in direct fighting. In other words, because you see, we are working with Americans, and Americans were dealing with very, very extremist groups, terrorism. So there is no way an American would go to fight, and for a Ugandan you remain sleeping. Because we were handling weapons. So if we are talking of security, don't think that we are doing the security of Dubai and Qatar.
Did you have the skills training to handle these weapons? Because I understand, even here with our UPDF, to handle a certain kind of machinery, you must have been trained thoroughly for a given period of time. Well,
we were subdued to a thorough training. Even before we left here, Uganda. We are subdued to 3 months, 6 months of training. And the moment we arrived there in Iraq or Afghanistan also, even actually before getting to Iraq or Afghanistan, we had to pass in countries like Kuwait and Jordan for another training and range and targets, everything. Then we had to go into another 3 months of training when we reached on the ground before being deployed. So we are trained.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I understand that. Now let's go back to the task force. What are your primary objectives as far as the 2026 general election is concerned? Are you only mobilizing for the president, or you're mobilizing because the president, first of all, has not yet come out to say I will be the candidate, or the NRM has not yet come out to say this is our candidate, our flag bearer for the 2026 general election. So let's paint a picture where the president probably gives us someone else. Will you mobilize for that person, or your rationale is to mobilize for the person of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni?
First and foremost, for us as returnees, we thank His Excellency the President, for Yoweri Museveni, for the democracy has brought in this country. If the president says that he's not coming back, for us we are eager and willing to support whoever he will hand over to us, as long as he subscribes to NRM.
Okay.
Because you see, democracy works in different ways. But still, it is people that drives democracy. So if President Museveni says, no, I am not coming back, however much we are asking him to come back as returnees, because that's thank him for the privilege he gave us. We want to thank him.
So you want to thank him by mobilizing
for him.
Okay.
To make sure that President Museveni has won this country, this coming elections, with more than 80%. So in other words, our target as returnees from Museveni Mobilization Task Force is to make sure that President Museveni wins massively and historically this election in the whole of Uganda, including Uganda and Kampala. Because you see, we have very strong grassroots structures. We have very strong regional coordination and district coordination in each and every district of Uganda here, and in each and every region of Uganda, including sub-regions. So we are a very big task force of a very big number of youth, ladies and gentlemen, and we are willing, and we must make sure that the president wins this election.
Okay,
Yes.
That's a very interesting perspective. So anyone, first, your main objective is to mobilize for the president of the country, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni.
Yes.
But in the event that he says, or the NRM comes up and says, we have another flag bearer, and the president also supports this flag bearer, you're ready to support that person, okay? Do you also mobilize for other NRM candidates?
Our primary role is to mobilize for the president.
Because yes, we have the president, but we also have representatives who take our needs as Ugandans to the president. So, aren't you short-sighted by just mobilizing for the presidency? I know it's very important, but follow me. Aren't you a bit, as the task force, aren't you short-sighted in just seeking and mobilizing for one person, yet you have at the grassroots level, levels that you talked about, you have representatives that you also need in cabinet, you need them to be in parliament?
Well, as we are saying, we are receiving a lot of calls from honorable MPs, from honorable ministers, the incumbent ones, and those who are interested in running up for different seats, both in parliament and other elective positions. We welcome everybody. We welcome everybody who wants us to help him. But our primary role is to mobilize for the president. In other words, we are thanking the president. You get my point?
Yes.
We are thanking the president, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, for the privilege he gave us to go and work in those countries. That's why we have united as returnees from Iraq, Somalia and Afghanistan to thank him. But still, remember that president subscribes to NRM as a party. So it means we wish NRM party well, and we are willing and ready support all NRM members to win, because the president will not work alone. The president needs MPs to work with. The president needs chairman LC5s to work with. In other words, we are mobilizing for NRM party as a party, but the most of it all, we are mobilizing for the president. Yes.
Okay. Well, during the conversation, we are speaking to a task force, the returnees task force, whose main aim is to mobilize for the president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, so that he may return to be the next president of Uganda in the year 2026. So what are your views on that? Do you have any questions for Mr. Anglin? It could be anything to do with maybe joining the task force. Are you a returnee? Because he said that they are looking for you. So if you have any questions, please join the conversation on WhatsApp number 0709-602-592. Now, I've been trying to look at the last elections that we had in 2021, and although the president did win the overall vote, it indicates that he garnered 35.91% within Buganda region. And the majority winner of the Buganda region in those last elections was Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu of the National Unity Platform Party with 62.01%. Why am I bringing in these numbers? When we look at the recent election in Kawempe North, the by-election, where we had Elias Ruyimbaz Nalukola and Farida Nambi from for the NRM, NRM still lost this area in the votes. The reason I'm asking you about this, as a task force, as a mobilization task force, young people are the majority in Uganda. We have a population of 70% the youth. So when we look at these elections, you will find that the youth are the people that are also doing the most voting. And Buganda region is very important to NRM, to the president to win. So what are you going to do differently to ensure that this time round the president wins by a large scale most of the constituencies in Buganda, but also that NRM candidates win in their respective constituencies vis-a-vis what happened in 2021?
Well, you see, what is disturbing the president is one thing. But the president has done a lot of things for this country and for Uganda and for Kampala. But where the problem is a gap of some of the mobilizers who doesn't get on ground to explain what the president has done. And remember, this is a capital city and a city. And this is a region. A capital city and a city within Buganda. Within Uganda. This is a region that hosts a CBD and a capital city.
Yes. And most of the administration offices in the country.
So it is the face. It is the face of the country.
Yes.
As long as you don't get on ground and explain very well what the president has done. Because you see, the moment the mobilizers of the president and the NRM leaves gaps, I've said gaps, between the presidency and the people, as long as it fails to convince the people and show the people what the president has done. Remember, I have told you, it's now tricky. People are no longer interested in telling them what the president has done, such as roads and whatever.
But you said you have to go to the grassroots and explain to the people.
Yes, but people are no longer interested in explaining to them roads and water and electricity.
What are they interested in?
They're interested in privileges. You see, those are rights.
What sort of privileges are we talking about here?
There are many privileges, but as trained mobilizers, there are things we cannot put, because we know there are very many groups there who wants to use our privileges, if we tell them here on air, to go and campaign.
But then isn't that self-defeating? Because part of the reason we are having this conversation is that people may join your effort.
Okay, for example, if I give you one part of a privilege, not a right.
Okay.
Because I have told you, as Ugandans, we have a right to have good roads, good hospitals, good water supplies, good infrastructure.
Those are our rights.
Those are our rights, because the government solicits revenue from us.
Yes.
In other words, those should be done. In other words,
we are entitled.
Yes, we are entitled to get them. So those should not be used as campaign tools.
So what are these privileges that should be used as campaign tools?
But look here.
Yes.
I'm going to give you one sort of a privilege that we have because President Museveni is the president of Uganda.
Okay.
When we were going in Iraq and Afghanistan in early 2000s, Uganda was having a problem of HIV and AIDS. You get my point? By then, there were drugs of HIV, but non-effective. Yes. So when we were going to Iraq and Afghanistan, The United States president by then, who was Bush, contacted His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the president of Uganda. And among the discussions, they discussed how Bush can help Uganda and how President Museveni can help America also. Because by President Museveni letting us go and work in Iraq and Afghanistan, he also helped America. But more of it all, he helped Ugandans. How? President Museveni requested the President of the United States by then to let the immediate active HIV drugs flow into this country.
Okay.
Are you aware?
Yes.
Have you been knowing that? Or you think that it was a right? Because already they were drugs, but not as much, not with much effect. You get my point?
No, I like that you're mentioning that, because in the show I was hosting earlier, I was actually speaking to the head of HIV prevention at the Uganda AIDS Commission, and he did say that we had, of course, every Ugandan who was alive in the 90s and in the early 2000s knows that we were struggling with a high HIV prevalence rate at 18%. But my takeaway from that conversation was that yes, we got the drugs at some point, but what really helped us the most in combating the spread of HIV/AIDS was the usage of condoms, which condoms used, and the condoms themselves were being supported by money that came from the United States. So I do understand that we had an issue with the drugs, but from the research that I have read, I understand that it was not mainly about inefficiency or drugs being ineffective. It was more about limited access to these drugs, that I understand that this government has made sure we have access right now.
Absolutely. And that's a privilege. Are you aware? That's not a right.
It is a privilege.
It is a privilege. So if we say that
we
we are
have the right to health. We have the right to good health. That's why we have infrastructure like hospitals. Yes.
We have a right to good health. You get my point? But there is for example, it's like when you are marking and somebody scores 90%. That's a distinction. Not so?
Yes.
And someone scores 95%.
It's still a distinction.
It's still a distinction.
Yes.
But who has won?
It's still a distinction.
Who has won?
It is still D1.
It is still D1, but if you are giving the first position, whom do you give it? You give it to the one of 90 or the one of 95?
I see what you're getting at. Okay.
Absolutely. So we are very much privileged as the country of Uganda to have President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni.
Okay. Now, you were still taking us through the strategies that the Returnees Task Force mobilization for President Yoweri Museveni is going to put in place to ensure that the president garners as much votes as possible. Please continue to tell us more about these strategies.
We have a lot of strategies, but most of it all, we have what we call grounded structures. Because you see, the moment you lose track on ground, then you are doing nothing. So we have structures in each district, in each parish, in each sub-county, and in each region of this country.
Yes.
So we are liaising with our national coordinators per region, per district. We are telling them Sevenomics.
Sevenomics?
Yes.
What is that?
These are privileges that President Museveni has availed to this country, not rights. Please, and I want this thing to be differentiated, not rights, because we have rights as citizens of this country. You get my point? But still, there are these privileges that we have got as a nation. And these are the things, these are privileges that Mwananchi, the local nationals, the Ugandans, wants to hear. These are privileges, are things that people want to hear, different things that President Museveni has done. And this is what we are telling people. And this is why wherever we go, people come in large numbers to listen to returnees mobilizing for the president.
Okay, now Anglin, I have a question for you here from Kenzie. He says, why are you looking at only winning the election instead of seeking change to save generations? And besides that, remember, this is a game that anyone can go through. Now the question is, what if the president doesn't make it? So basically, I'll paraphrase. He's saying, one, he has two questions. First, why is your main focus on winning the election instead of seeking for change? And the change here he mentions is the youth are unemployed. We still have some roads that have been developed in different parts of the country, but we still have insufficient roads and poor road network in some regions. Some areas, he says, are not yet on the electricity grid. And then he mentions that we have a scourge of teenage pregnancies in different sub-regions in the country. So he's like, why aren't you seeking change to save generations? Why are you just looking at winning an election? And two, he's asking, what if the president doesn't make it? Then what will you say?
Well, voting President Museveni into power is change itself. Are you aware? As long as President Museveni is the president, it is change itself. So I don't know what change my friend is talking about.
He has mentioned the areas where he believes there is need for change.
You see, let me tell you, he has talked of young youth and whatever. Not so. But let me show you.
Who makes 70% of our population?
Yes. Let's go by facts now. In 1980,
yes,
when the president was almost joining the Bush, our NRA, Bush was struggle. Do you know how many youth were in this country?
How many?
They are not exceeding 10%. But at the moment, the youth of this country makes 75%.
70%.
70%.
Yes.
Do you know how it came to raise from below 10% to 75%?
How?
It's because when President Museveni came into power, he put some mechanisms that made that number to rise. One of the mechanisms was immunization.
Yes.
Immunization. Because some of the kids and children were dying at young age. Mothers were dying giving birth, which was reducing the number of youths by then. But when Museveni came into power, he brought immunization as a strategy. Youth are no longer suffering from polio. Youth are no longer suffering from measles. Kids are no longer suffering from these communicable diseases. Why? Because President Museveni brought immunization, whereby you immunize your kid, and the kid grows into a youth. So you think that President Museveni, who brought immunization, doesn't love the youth?
Of course he does, and you're right, the maternal mortality and infant mortality rates have significantly decreased over the years. But let's look at the youth today. What are the unique problems they are facing? The major problem is unemployment. Universities churn out different graduates every single year, and people even make fun of the graduates that should we tell them or we shouldn't, because they're saying, yes, you've graduated, but there are no jobs in the job market. So probably he wants you to speak to issues of that nature, and probably, let's say the president wins again. I think your job does not end at mobilization again. How are you representing the voices of the youth that need representation and the youth that need jobs?
Well, we also have our targets that we are going to tell the president, or we have already told him. One, you see, president knows that there is a problem of youth employment. That's why, yes, that's why he comes up with ideas like PDM. Because the president's message is, If a youth gets that PDM fund, he can start a farm, let's say of hens or goats. You get my point? He grows it. He might price it slowly, not very fast. You see, some youth wants very fast, touchable things, but it will not happen.
Get rich quick.
Get rich quick. That's the problem with youth. You think that they must get rich quickly, which will not be the case. But in the wisdom of His Excellency the President, says PDM, a youth gets that fund, you get my point, goes and grows something, you get my point? That's why President Museveni is opening in international markets. That you as the youth, after receiving the PDM fund, you have grown something, there is already a market for it. He first empowers you here with a seed capital of PDM. You get my point? Go grow something on your small acre of land. You get my point?
Do the youth have the acres of land though?
I have said small acre of land.
Okay, so do they have the land?
I have said small acre.
Do they have the land?
You see, now that's
because you're saying go grow on your small acre of land, but the question is, do they have the land?
You see, it's not necessarily that for you to grow something, you have to be having miles of land. Listen, look here. You have where you stay.
I'm renting.
You are renting. I am sure there is a veranda. You see this?
You're assuming there is a veranda.
It must be there.
Because some of the youth are staying in areas where they don't even have a veranda, where they're stepping on each other's, doorsteps too.
Yes. But you grow something small, you get my point, with good quality.
Okay.
You get my point? Quality should be good. You get my point? Harvest it. You get my point? And find a ready market in Sudan. Find a ready market in Congo. In other words, after harvesting, you get my point? There is a ready market for your product. You get money. You get my point? You see the target of the president?
Yes.
So, in other words, we need to tell the youth that we will not get rich quickly as we think. We need to price slowly by slowly, and we get far. How? Go get the PDM money, grow something, or invest in let's say, poultry, get hens, let hens lay eggs, correct those eggs, have your ready trays of eggs, and there is a ready market in Sudan. There is a ready market in Kenya. There is a ready market in Congo. There is a ready market in Tanzania. And these days, President Museveni has gone far to get other more international markets. For example, in Nigeria, in China. In other words, President is trying so hard to create jobs for the youth.
Well, thank you so much, Anglin. Now, Jackson from Rubirizi District, you're asking, your question is not related to this conversation, but you're asking about HIV positive patients who, whether it is true they will be paying 700,000 every year for ARVs. I believe this is in reference to an earlier conversation, and the answer is no. The head of prevention at Uganda AIDS Commission did say that the government is ensuring that Ugandans continue to receive these drugs free of charge. So no, there won't be any payment. Thank you. I feel like many of the questions that are coming through are regarding the previous conversation. Now, this one says, I'm Dennis from Ginger. Yes, I believe. Okay, it is still regarding. So, Anglin, this one says, please, let's look at normal circumstances of winning and losing, which is normal for any race. I really want to know, what will you explain to President Museveni in case he doesn't make it? Of course, you can't say you must make it because we might think otherwise. So I think it's the same gentleman who earlier asked you, what if he doesn't win? But we do understand that in an election, there are winners and there are losers. Mr. Anglin, we've come to the end of our conversation, but I would like to hear your parting remarks to Ugandans, especially those that support your cause, support your mobilization task force, that want to see the president win again in the 2026 general elections.
Well,
but also the doubting Thomases. You should have a word for them.
Yeah, the doubting Thomases, I want to tell them that Uganda is a democratic country, whereby everybody is free to stand in any election.
Yes.
So, everybody, as long as you're Ugandan, everybody is free to stand for presidency. If you win election, we welcome you. And that's the democracy that President Museveni has brought in this country. Because you remember, in 5 years, 5 past years, there was no that democracy. But I call upon all Ugandans to join our cause and to make sure that President Museveni and NRM has won these elections. And we are going to work very hard to make sure that we mobilize for the president intellectually, civically, and very many other areas.
Okay.
So I want to tell our coordinators outside there in each and every district that stand firm, preach the gospel of President Museveni. Don't forget the Musevenomics that we told you, because people are interested in Musevenomics, not rights, the Musevenomics. So preach all the gospels of Musevenomics as we have taught them to you. And I can assure all Ugandans, all NRM supporters and lovers, the supporters of President Museveni, that come next year, general elections, President Museveni will win with 80% and above.
80%?
Yes.
Aren't you being a bit...
No, we are not being a bit. We mean what we are saying, because we have already started actually, because we know what the president wants us to do for him. The ground mobilization of telling people, the Mwananchi, what he has done. You see, there is a small gap between the Mwananchi and President Museveni about what President Museveni has done. So that's what we are exactly telling the local nationals. And they are understanding us. When we tell them, they understand what the president has done, what the good things the president has brought in this country with the NRM government.
Okay.
And what are the future plans of the president?
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Anglin Agawa. Now, Mr. Anglin says that according to their mobilization, they want to ensure that the president wins the next general election. That is in case he comes as the flag bearer, because he hasn't said a thing, so I don't want us to be presumptuous. But in the event that he is the NRM flag bearer, their intention is to ensure that they garner for him as much as 80% of the vote. Now, in 2021, in 2006, the president did win the vote by 59% nationwide, and in 2021 this was reduced a bit, but still he was the overall winner for the vote, especially in many parts of Uganda. Now, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation, Mr. Anglin. It's been my pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure for me to be invited here also.
Okay, you've been watching Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, sitting in for Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono. We'll be back tomorrow with Good Morning Uganda Friday edition. Stick around, enjoy the programming on Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Buza Kamiso now, enhancing tax education and bringing it closer to